Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our July 20th, 2023 Ascension Parish Council meeting. I'm going to ask Coach Thomas, please lead us in the invocation and a pledge of allegiance.
All right. Let us bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, as we assemble ourselves here tonight, we very grateful, very thankful, and we pray, Lord, that you bless each and every person under the sound of my voice. We pray, Lord, that you guide, lead, direct, and help us. We pray for this parish of Ascension, and Lord God, we thank you for the many, many blessings that you have bestowed upon each of us. And Lord, as we leave this place tonight, we ask, Lord, that you allow us to get home safe and sound to our families. In your name we pray, and we all say it, amen.
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 Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Coach.
You're welcome.
Roll call, Ms. Secretary. Please note that we are missing Mr. Lambert, Ms. Casso, and Mr. Cagnolati. Everyone else here is present. Chair's addition. The chair has no additions tonight. Item number 4, public comment sign-in period. If anyone would like to speak on any of the agenda items, please come up to the podium. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Please come see Ms. Cinnamon over here. She has the cards. You fill it out whenever we get to that agenda item. You'll have 3 minutes to speak on that particular item. Number 5, the parish president's report. Mr. Quimmo.
Good evening, council. Thank you, Chair. Usually my reports are pretty quick, pretty small. Tonight it seemed to get a little lengthy, so please bear with me. First, I would like to start to remind everyone, as Michael King did at the recreation meeting, that we have a lot of great events coming up. I'd like to mention the information about both of our Youth Fest events. The first one is held Saturday, January 29th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Jambalaya Park, and the second will be held the following Saturday, August 5th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the WAG Center on the West Bank. So please come out and join us. We're still looking for volunteers as well to sign up. Visit our website or Facebook page for more information. So also just want to mention that and give a shout out to Mr. John Diaz. If anybody saw the press release today, John is moving on for an opportunity in the private sector, our CAO. So I would like to thank him publicly about all the great things that he's done. Being part of my team and starting out, he was a breath of fresh air for me and the whole administration, the team building, all those exercises that he helped implement early on was a big boost for this administration. So we wish him well. I will tell you that he will always be part of my APG family, and he will not be forgotten. So don't be surprised if you see him in a future Ascension Parish event, because I think he's still going to stay involved where he can. With that, Transition Matters will be making some public announcements in the coming weeks. He is staying on to August 11th, that Friday, so he has really given us a great opportunity to do some transition planning and put some things in place, and those announcements will be coming in the coming weeks as we transition. And we wish him well and wish him the best. With that, we'll go ahead and move on. I have a presentation for Miss Regina, so she'll come up to the podium. So this is something I wanted to go ahead and start doing. You know, our employees carry out all the duties and the things that we create here at the council as well as the administration. You know, they're the boots on the ground, and they're the ones that make us look good. So with that, I'm excited to award the very first Parish President's Achievement Coin. And this is what it looks like. And so this coin is a reminder and an acknowledgement of your leadership, dedication, performance, and integrity. At this time, I would like to give a special recognition to Regina Thomas, recently promoted to Assistant Director of Public Works. Your dedication does not go unnoticed. From the early mornings to late nights, you have consistently put in extra effort to deliver exceptional results. You have demonstrated teamwork, collaboration, and a genuine care for our residents. Your contributions not only have driven our success, but they also set a standard of excellence and inspire others. In every successful venture, it is the people who make the difference. Our employees have constantly gone above and beyond, pouring their heart and soul into their work, and their contributions have not gone unnoticed. They are the driving force behind our achievements and the ones who ensure that our vision becomes reality. So please join me in congratulating Regina on a job well done. Thank you. Thank you so much, Don.
See, congratulations, Miss Regina. That's well deserved. You want to say something to Miss Regina?
This time, I would like Jacob Wagisback to go over the results of our financial audit. And thanks to our parish staff, I'm very proud to say that we have no audit findings, which is the first time this has ever happened in parish history. Jacob, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, Council. In the big book, you have a couple of inserts there. I'm going to be going over the slide deck on white paper. So if you can focus on that instead of the 300-page book in front of you. But here I've got about 10 slides that I'll be going over. We'll start with some financial data and kind of move into the audit results on the last slide. So on slide 1 here, we have the revenues of the governmental fund types. You'll see here the parish is pushing about $140 million in revenues annually as of December 31st, 2022. Looking at a 5-year trend, that's about a 19% increase in 5 years, which is substantial. Largest resources of the parish, sales tax here in blue, that's about $74 million in sales tax, 38% increase in a 5-year period. Secondly, in green, you see the ad valorem taxes came in at about $43 million. That's about an $8.6 million increase in 5 years. And then lastly, your third largest set of resources is intergovernmental, which is basically grants. Those kind of jump all over the place. Unfortunately, they go up whenever we have disasters, so we don't like to see them go up too much, but they are the third largest resource on the governmental side. So that all depends on, one, as I said, disasters, but additionally funding outside of the parish, so state grants, federal grants, and things of that nature. Next slide here, we break down sales tax collections. The different colors display the different restrictions on your sales tax. The blue down at the bottom, coming in at about $35 million, is on your unrestricted sales tax. That's the sales tax number 1 fund. Secondly, drainage sales tax came in at about $22 million. That was up about $6 million from 2008, so continuing to see increases in resources. The red is fire protection at $5.7 million, and then lastly, road construction, which is coming through sales and use tax district number 2, is at $11.5 million. So $74 million in sales tax collected for year 2022. You see a large spike here. Doing a lot of governmental work. The main reason here in talking to sales tax authority representatives is online vendors. A couple years ago, there was a case in federal court regarding out-of-state online vendors and pushing them to remit sales tax to localities. With that coming through, we're seeing a lot of additions to your sales tax rolls on a month-over-month basis. So that's the big reason we're seeing increases in sales tax right now. Looking at the utilization of your unrestricted sales tax number 1 fund, you see here it kind of jumps between different initiatives. So this is Sales tax, number one, not only funds your general fund, but also funds where shortfalls come in, such as recreation and jail. This is also used to maintain reserves. After that, then you fund initiatives. So just based upon what the initiatives are and where reserves are maintained on a year-by-year basis, your budget determines kind of how these resources are used on a year-by-year basis. So first it goes by budget, then the budget ordinance when excess sales tax kicks in. Excess sales tax can make things go up or down one way or another, just based upon what level they come in at. Next slide, expenditures of governmental funds. You see here, the big thing here is operationally in the blue. You see it's pretty steady year over year. There's some slight creep up, not uncommon, obviously with cost. And then in the last couple of years, just inflation has kicked in. But it has stayed fairly steady on a year-by-year basis. The other thing here is disaster costs. Over the last couple of years, you've incurred right at about $20 million in disaster-related costs. Most which have been or will be reimbursed by FEMA, but it is a substantial number that you have to plan for. Debt service is in red. That's about $10 million annually over the last 5 years. And then lastly is capital projects. Capital projects vary year over year. It's just depending on budget policy and what additional resources you have one year after another. Then we're going to look at year-end balances. First of all, cash and investments. As of December 30th, Parish is currently has custody of about $300 million in cash and investments on hand. For the most part, about $159 million of that is restricted in some type of form or fashion, and we'll look at that on the next slide, how that breaks down. Additionally, you have some funds, about $114 million, that is restricted for operations. So you have about $159 restricted for capital projects and $114 that's restricted for operational purposes, such as drainage, mental health, health unit, things of that nature. And then lastly, a very small amount, right under $3 million for debt service related purposes. And so the last slide breaks down the fund balance kind of by utilization here. Up at the top right, what I want to point out is you're currently in the general fund and sales tax number one fund. You currently have right under $34 million. That's basically what you consider your reserves. So if something were to happen or you needed to grab some cash to fund a project, that's basically what you have in the bank to do so. With no strings attached. The thing you need to look at there is just maintaining a reserve level. Typically, the rule of thumb is no less than 6 months. You're currently probably about 11 months on the books. The other considerations of what projects you have in the future to fund, as well as whenever a natural disaster does come through, you do have to fund that up front and get paid by FEMA later. So there are some other considerations just on top of how many months you can fund that you need to take in consideration as you do budget. But you see here between the committed and capital outlay restrictions, they do account for about 88% of your total fund balance of $289 million. The largest portions of that drainage totals $80 million between the special projects and capital outlay fund. And then roads does have about $50 million. A lot of that sitting in Move Ascension and some large bond or grant funding that you had received in the past. But this kind of gives you a breakdown of where your fund balances sit. You have another insert in that front cover that breaks these balances down by fund if you want to get a little more detailed. You can look at that at a later date, and I'm happy to answer any questions on that schedule. Then lastly, just want to go over the audit results. So during the audit process, we go through a number of tests, not only verifying numbers, but also verifying compliance with state laws and other auditing standards. So this just kind of gives you a list of just some of the things we do. it is a lot. It is a lot of pressure on your staff. They're not just doing this when we come in. They're doing this, day over day, in order to comply with all of these laws and regulations. So it is a big effort on the staff, the finance staff, and also human resources, procurement, and so on and so forth. So they all play a part in this process. So a lot going on when we come out. So this is the actual results of the 22 audit. So we actually issue 4 auditor's reports. They are on the financial statements, audit on internal control over financial reporting and compliance, parish system of road transportation, which affects your funding for roads, and then finally your internal controls over compliance for federal grant programs. In all of these reports, we have unmodified opinions, which is the best opinions that you're going to be able to, we can issue under auditing standards. Secondly, on page 283 of the big book, you'll see last year we did have 2 reportable items. We are required to go back and review these items. We identified no instances during the current year audit of the 2 items that were reported last year. So 2 items were resolved in the current year audit. And then, as Parish President Quitmore said earlier, for the current year, we have no reportable items in your audit. For the extent of time that I've been around and that Tommy has been around, this is the first time we've been able to come to this council and say that we had no reportable items to the state or federal government. So kudos to the staff for that. Just kind of in closing, I'm happy to take any questions. I apologize that this audit was not distributed before tonight. I just got these books Tuesday from the print shop. More than happy to come back and answer any questions or field any phone calls, however it needs to be done. But happy to take any questions from anyone.
Yeah, before we take questions, I'll just echo that. If anybody has any questions right now for Mr. Weisbach, happy to do that. And I'll kind of take a poll of the council, maybe either next finance meeting or next council meeting. If they feel like we'd like to have you back, then we'll ask you to come back, and that way we can really kind of dig into it. Because it's hard to go through 283 pages in about 10 minutes.
It's a lot, yeah. So the audit was submitted to the state before the June 30th deadline. So they have accepted that report with no questions from me. So 2022 is behind us at this point in time.
Gotcha, okay. Mr. Robert, did you want to, I see your buttons lit up. Would you like to ask a question, or did I skip you earlier?
Well, since you called on me, I was just gonna tell congratulations for the presidential coin that was received.
Oh, Ms. Regina, I'm sorry.
Ms. Regina, I work with you often on the West Bank. Greatly appreciate every time I've worked with you. You've met me out there and resolved and created a resolution for any problems we've had. Keep up the good work. It's a pleasure working with you, and maybe next time you can talk Clinton to giving you the presidential credit card. But congratulations. As far as questions on here, no, sir. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Weisbach at this time?
I'm looking over here at the book in page 64, and actually I wasn't 64, and I lost my spot. I was looking under compensated employee compensation for like your vacation hours and benefits and whatnot. Do you have I was looking for your reports on your overtime and whatnot.
We do not include that in here. We have some detail in our work papers regarding overtime, but that is not required to be disclosed.
No, I was just asking.
Yeah,
I was reading.
yeah, not off the top of my head, I don't.
All right,
But
thank you.
we do have some
That's all I
reports
had,
at the office.
All right, if we don't have any more questions, thank you, Mr. Weisbach, appreciate it.
All right.
And I'll be in touch with you in the next week or so, and so we have we have council meeting before finance, so we'll see which one of those fits better.
All right.
Thank you.
Happy to be there, thank you.
Is there anything else on your report, Mr. President, or you want to go to your presentation? Okay.
I had a question.
Okay.
Mr. President, transportation guy, we met him at the last meeting, but he was unsure whether he was a director, engineer. Do we know what he is? Well, I mean, do you know? I mean,
Not starting today, and ain't gonna start tomorrow.
Mr. President, it's not doing anything. Let me just explain for a second. Okay, well, I'd like to.
We're gonna stay here quietly until Mr. Aaron
Okay, you
Lawler
can, well,
passes on his questions. So whenever you're ready, Chair,
Well,
I'll be ready to pass
My
on.
question, though, was, well, it was just a simple question, is you had introduced him and said he was going to be the Director of Transportation, and if he's the Director of Transportation, he has to be ratified within 90 days. And that was what my question was when I asked him, you know, is he ready for that? It was his understanding that he was not having to be ratified. So I'm just trying to figure out, is he the director or is he not the director? And I think it's a pretty simple and basic question. He has been to a transportation meeting. If you would come to a transportation meeting, I could ask you, but you haven't been to one in 4 years. So it's a simple.
You would be the cause of that, but we can move on whenever you're ready, Chair.
Well, it's a simple question. Is he the director or not? I mean, I would think you would know that as the president. Maybe you don't. Jeez. That's amazing. Okay.
All right, moving on to, Mr. Regina, I'm sorry, Coach. Item number 6, presentation, the proclamation to proclaim July 8th, Dancing for a Cause Day in Ascension Parish for the Ark of East Ascension.
All right, thank you,
Mr.
Chair.
President.
So, first I just want to mention what Dancing for a Cause and how it's just a awesome event. I think the community loved it. It was just phenomenal. It has been year after year. I just really enjoy myself, and I don't know if that's because our own HR director, Lucy Kaysen, won the event, and she raised the most money, over $40,000. So what a huge achievement on her part, but it was just a phenomenal event. And so we're here to do a proclamation for the Ark. So I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. Whereas the Ark of Ascension, located in Gonzales, Louisiana, was founded in 1964 by a group of parents with children with developmental disabilities. The concerned parents came together in an effort to find methods for their educating their children and developing meaningful activities for their engagement. Today, the organization offers community members of all-inclusive services and referral opportunities for individuals with developmental disabilities. These services are offered at several sites in Gonzales and surrounding areas. In 2009, the Ark of Ascension established a fundraising community awareness project with a development for Dancing for a Cause. And the event is now in its 14th season. The project has rapidly grown into a popular community event. The fundraiser is held each year in July on the second Saturday and showcases local community leaders by pairing them with professional dancers. The fundraiser is a wonderful way for the community to recognize the Ark of Ascension's efforts to fulfill its mission to enhance the quality of life for individuals with disabilities and their families through services and advocacy to support the choice, independence, and dignity. The Ark of Ascension offers multiple services to the community. Our services and support provided by individuals with disabilities the opportunity to learn valuable life and work skills in order to become contributing members of their community. Therefore, I, Clint Quentmall, President of the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, by the virtue of the authority invested in me, do hereby proclaim the second Saturday of July to be the dedicated to raising funds for the Ark of Ascension via Dancing for a Cause. So I would like the Executive Director, Raven, and her staff to come up and speak with us tonight, and so she can kind of talk a little bit about the Ark and about the event. Raven?
Good afternoon. I'm Raven LaBeach, the Ark of East Ascension Executive Director, and I am so glad to be before you, thanking you for the support that the parish has provided to our agency for Dancing for a Cause. But of course, it was a wonderful show on July 8th, and we put on a wonderful show every year that we have it. We want to thank all of our dancers, our star dancers, our community leaders, because it's so much more than dancing. Their fundraising is for a cause, and the cause is providing supports and services for people with developmental and intellectual delays, adults and children. And so the funds that we raise allow us to be able to not only continue the service that we have, but add additional things. The whole purpose of our program at the Ark of East Ascension is to provide choice and opportunity. We have a lot of things ahead that we want to do. We have a lot of programs that we have. Our premier program we're working on, and that's currently in place, is our summer camp for children with developmental disabilities and intellectual delays. And so the funds that we have allow that camp to be free for parents who have children with disabilities. And so it's for the whole entire summer season. We're very proud of that. We also have our work crews. We have our day habilitation program where adults come into our training center and able to learn skills to help them be independent in the community. So it's very important that we talk about dancing for a cause, but that we always know what the cause is, and it's for our individuals who also dance at the event. So if you were there, they danced from on MC Hammer Can't Touch This, and they did a wonderful job. And so, as well as all the dancers. And we definitely could not put on an event, not only with our clients and our family, but our wonderful staff at the Ark of East Ascension, but our community partners. So many people in the community assisted in making our show a success and making the day a success. And the day for us starts on Friday and ends on Sunday, and it was wonderful with all of the volunteer help that we have, and I want to definitely give a special thank you to all of our volunteers that provided support for us, new ideas. We definitely listened to the community and added some new things and did some different things that worked wonderful at the event this year. I do want to say congratulations again to our winners. All of our dancers are winners, but definitely to Miss Lucy, who should be called Beyonce because she left it all on the floor. And so I am here with Ms. Sharon, our marketing director, Ms. Cindy, the marketing assistant, two of our board members, Ms. Anita Can and Ms. Erica Ramos, and our business manager, Kiwanda Joshua. I think that's everybody because I never want to forget anyone. And so, you know, we're still running our business and running our support, and I'm so grateful that they are here to receive this proclamation along with me and for the ages. And thank you all for this opportunity.
Okay, so I'd like to approach and let's take a photo.
Yeah,
Yeah, have the
absolutely.
staff come on up and let's take.
Come on, girls, get close to him. He won't bite.
Everybody say cherub.
Thank y'all so much. Dempsey? Talk to your chair. Thank you very much, all the ladies from the Ark. Let me see, Ms. Secretary, please note that Mr. Lambert is now present. Item number 7, consent agenda. Ms. McKee. Oh, I'm sorry, Cinnamon. I've forgotten Coach twice. He wants to say something to Ms. Regina. I apologize.
Thank you, Mr. Alonso Chase. I too would like to as chairman of the West Ascension Drainage, I'd like to thank Ms. Regina for doing such a great job on the West Bank and making sure that all our ditches are dug and the covers are blown and a lot of other things to keep the workers intact and doing a lot of great things over there. I want to thank you. I appreciate the work that you're doing on the West Bank. And being chairman of the West Bank makes myself and the rest of us look real good. So we thank you and we appreciate you. Also, Mr. President mentioned Mr. Diaz leaving. I'd like to thank Mr. Diaz also, along with you, in working with Mr. Diaz in all of the projects that he has accumulated on the West Bank and working side by side with the administration and with Mr. Diaz. Things are looking real bright on the West Bank of Ascension, and we want to thank him for his extremely hard work and persistent in making things happen. And we want to thank him, thank his family, and we ask that he go out and do the best he can. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. You had something, Mr. Lambert? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would also like to echo Ms. Regina. She started on the east side over here, and we have spent many storms together, many floods together, and I'm so happy that you are in the supervisor position and really doing a great job on the west side. And I know if we ever need you over here on the east side, you would be more than welcome to share that knowledge you have. Appreciate you. I'm sorry I was late, but I had my granddaughter swim Harper. So, but I would like to add just one more thing, if you don't mind. Last night I was able to attend the Lifehouse graduation, and we have Mr. Lionel Johnson. Is that right, Mr. Parrott? It's Lionel Johnson who graduated in this class that we are the sponsors amongst a whole bunch of other businesses. Brown and Root was there, a bunch of folks was there. And I really want to give him a shout out because he represents our Ascension Parish, and he graduated last night. And it was, you know, when you're looking at before and after, this is a very good story and in the end, and I'm so glad that we support him. So, Mr. Lionel Johnson, hopefully we'll have something for him on soon, because he represented the parish very well, and he is in our grass cutting department. So, hope I didn't cut that up too bad.
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, you're good. Thank you, Ms. Lambert.
Yeah.
Aye, Ms. McKee.
Adoption of regular council meeting minutes of June 1st, 2023. Approval of amendment number 2 to the professional services contract with ICE Sales and Services, LLC, to increase the total amount by an additional $25,000. The total new contract not to exceed amount of $75,000. Approval of renewal of master services contract between Ascension Parish Government and Inmon Enterprises, LLC, doing business as Janet King of Baton Rouge for 1 year, beginning on August 18, 2023, with an option to renew for 1 consecutive year after the 1-year period ends. Total amount of the contract is $1,036,172. Approval of amendment number 1 to contract for grass cutting services with MD Lawn Service and Pressure Washing, LLC, to include additional cuts at various locations. Total amendment amount $40,600 for a new contract not to exceed amount of $182,140. Approval of renewal of services contract between Ascension Parish Government and Lifehouse Staffing for a term of 1 year with an option to renew for 1 year consecutive year after the 1-year period ends. Compensation for the term of this agreement shall not exceed $149,500. Approval of renewal of a master services contract between Ascension Parish Government and Trash Rangers of Louisiana Commercial, LLC, for 1 year beginning on September 1st, 2023, with an option to renew for 1 year after the 1-year period ends. Total contract shall not exceed $165,000. Bid results in approval to enter into contract for Bonadonna Catalda drainage improvements with the lowest responsive bid submitted by MTC Construction, LLC, in the amount of $1,401,442. Approval of change order number 2, Angelo and Son Electrical Services for the OEP Backup Power Electrical Connection Project, Parish Project number PM 2203001. Increase the number of days by 74 days for a new substantial completion date of 3/15/23 due to delays in receiving the automatic transfer switch, which was received and installed on February 17, 2023 by contractor. No change to contract price. Approval of amendment number 2 to the master contract for professional services with Multi-Studio LLC for Louisiana for an extension of the contract through December 31st, 2023. Approval of change order number 1, Doyle Electric for Crescent Place subdivision lighting repairs to increase the contract time for an additional 60 days due to equipment ownership between the parish and Entergy. No change to contract price. Approval of amendment number 8 to the professional services contract with McKim & Creed, Inc. for utilities, engineering, and technical support to extend the contract term through August 3rd, 2024. Approval of amendment number 4 to the agreement for psychiatric, substance abuse, and mental health services with Dr. J. Robert Barnes, Mental Health East, for additional funds through the end of the contract term in the amount of $8,191.28 for a new contract not to exceed amount of $278,072.56. Approval of renewal of contract with Southern Strategy Group to provide services to the legislative branch of state government to include but not limited to analysis, advice, advocacy, facilitation, and monitoring for a term of 1 year beginning August 1st, 2023 and ending July 31st, 2024 for a monthly fee of $6,000 for a not to exceed amount of $72,000.
Would anyone like to remove anything from the consent agenda for further discussion? All right, now I have a motion to accept the consent agenda from Mr. Lambert, a second by Mr. Mason. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Let's see. Item 8A, item 8. This is committee recommendations. Mr. Cagnolati is out of town, so I'll present the recommendations for him. 8A, appointments and reappointments to the Tourism Commission. On July 10th, 2023, interviews were conducted and the following recommendations were made for the Tourism Board. Number 1, and we're doing one by one. Miss Mary Skinner, a new appointment replacing Jean St. Germain. We have a motion by Mr. Mason, a second by Coach. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Number 2, Miss Angela LaFleur, a new appointment replacing Craig Walling.
Motion.
A motion by Mr. Lambert.
Second.
A second by Mr. Lawler. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Number 3, Mr. Michael Bonfanti, he is a reappointment.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Mason, a second by Mr. Lawler. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. 8B, reappointments to the Waterway Commission for a 2-year term. First is Ms. Linnell Johnson, who is a reappointment.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Lambert, a second by Coach. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. And the second one is Ms. Gina Landry, who is also a reappointment. A motion by Mr. Mason, a second by Mr. Lambert. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. 9, general business. 9A, presentation and approval to proceed with introduction of ordinance of 2023 Transportation Impact Fee Study Update. Mr. Poche.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. In May of this year, the 5-year report was done, update. Now it's 6 years. You guys changed it to 6 years last year due to the ordinance changes that were occurring by Clancy Mullen, and based on the cost index, cost of construction, and the variables that are included in all of this, they came up with a new fee structure. Basically, the permits right now, or the imposed on all permits, the fees on all permits are imposed at 90% until the end of this year. You set that in June of 2021. to raise them periodically a percentage each year until you get to 100%. Now it's 90%. December 31st of this year, it is supposed to change to 100%. You can see on page 1 of the Duncan Associates report, the percent change, the new fees, max fee, and the percent change in there. Basically, the percentages range from 10% increase to a high of 131% in office, retail, and residential categories, and there were reductions from 21 to 50% for industrial warehouse categories. There will basically be 3 items that we will be asking you to look at in the introduction of this. Number 1 will be to accept the report and the new fees at 100%. The second will be a decision on your part. As it stands now, as I've said, the fees are assessed on the East Bank at 90% until the end of this year and at 35% on the West Bank. As of December the 31st, they are to increase to 100%. You have the option to assess the fees at whatever you want. If you choose to, because it's a pretty big increase in several categories, if you choose to minimize the amount of increase, you could change the assessment and increase it in coming years, or you can leave it the way it is. And the third decision will be, there were some recommended changes when Jerome and Mr. Clancy were working on this. There are some items in the original ordinance that need to be updated, some specificity added to some of the items. So that is something for you to peruse. All the items highlighted in your packet in yellow are items that would need to be changed. So those were the 3 items that you would need to consider in moving this forward.
Any questions for Mr. Poche? So you would like us to vote to move forward with this ordinance for introduction?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Dempsey has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize. Last Thursday, I was out with the company function, but if I have the option here to leave it as is, that's where I'm gonna stand. Right now, with everything that's going on, you know, there could be possibly changes here. You know, we know there's gonna be changes at the Capitol and other one. You know, you're looking at, you know, $3,000 on just on a simple family, you know, this is kind of rough on folks that are trying to get in first-time homes, you know, different things. I would just like to hold off and leave it at the 90%, the 35% on the west side. I haven't heard any problems over there, but, you know, we coming off COVID. We've coming off a couple of bad years, and I just don't think this is the right time right now to increase any fees, and that's the way I feel about it.
Second.
Yeah, Mr. Lawler?
Yeah, actually, one of the things that we did discuss, though, during the transportation meeting actually concerned the West Bank coach, for you and Joel to know. It is at 35%, and that is extremely low, but there is a potential in the upcoming years that we do see, you know, a tremendous amount of growth on the West Bank. And what we don't want to have happen is we lose a tremendous amount of financial income from these new developments that can happen over there that really could improve roads on the West Bank. You know, this transportation impact fee was delayed for years. And one of the analysis was that the time that we delayed it, and I believe was over a 5-year period, because it was such huge growth during that time period, cost us like $30 million in road funds that could have gone towards fixing roads. So one of the thoughts is, should we increase this from 35% up to something higher on the West Bank in anticipation that we are going to have some serious growth over there in the upcoming years? Because we don't want to miss that. That's something we certainly don't want to lose out on, the ability to fix roads on the west side, because I can tell you the $12 million that this has brought in general, and most of that's been on the east side, has done a tremendous amount for our roads on the east side. It's allowed us to do a whole bunch of things. So we, you know, think about what $12 million could do in Donaldsonville if you get that kind of, you know, growth going over there. So just something to think about. I personally, I don't think we should lower the amount. I think we should go in the direction that we're going, because part of what this is it's looking at the cost to maintain and fix our roads. And the public has told us constantly, roads are a problem. They want our roads fixed. They want to fix potholes. They want to have turn lanes. They want to have safety improvements. And by reducing this or leaving it where it is, we're simply not keeping up with the cost. The cost is going up, and we're going to say we're going to do the opposite. We're going to have less money to go fix the roads. And remember, this is based on new people coming in, new houses, additional traffic. So we're saying, hey, we're going to bring in additional traffic, but we're going to have less money to cope with that. That has been the antithesis of, where we really have been pushing in the last couple of years, is that we need funds to fix our roads, that this new growth coming into the parish has to pay for itself. I've heard that 100 times. If you're coming in, pay for the added traffic. This is the way to do that, and now we're thinking about going back on that. Doesn't really make too much sense to me. So I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Robert.
With the West Bank in consideration, I feel like the West Bank has a lot of infrastructure in place already, which is a plus. Right now, we are business and resident lacking, but we have a lot of infrastructure. In the same token, 35% is a large discount compared to the 90% that we're doing on the East Bank. I too feel like staying where we are isn't necessarily the smartest thing to do. It's a lot of revenue that we could be bringing in for transportation. In the same token, I understand what Councilman Lambert's saying, and we do have a lot of costs and a lot of things that have come to Ascension Parish in the United States concerning COVID and all that stuff. But if you look at our revenues that we had an audit on earlier, our tax revenues are up, which means people are buying more, which means Ascension Parish is doing well. I would at least like to see maybe a 5% raise on both sides. Say we do 95% on the east side and 40% on the west side. I do want to keep the west side low. I think 40% is still low because we want to get developers over there. We want to give a lot of incentive to move the majority of this development from the east side to the west side. I feel like if we just keep it here, it just reminds me of this is the third year or fourth year in a row that we've done this. It's never going to go anywhere. It's going to be an expense, and we're incurring more expenses. I think if we cut it in half, then it would be doable. We're still giving it a little break, but we're not leaving all the money on the table. So I'd like to see something like a 5% increase on both sides. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would like to say something, though. Keep in mind that if you do nothing with the assessment, when you accept it at 100%. You change the assessment. Now, if you do nothing, you have already set that whatever you put at 100% will be assessed at 90% on the East Bank and 35% at the West Bank until the end of this year. Then it will automatically go to 100%. So if you want the assessments to stay the way that they are, the way that they are scheduled to be, you don't have to do anything with that. And look, you can, if you're talking about Donaldsonville, at any time, you can go and change the assessment through action anytime you want on either side. So within a month, you could change the assessment on the East Bank or the West Bank. That's not something that you have to do on a yearly basis because the fees are accepted at 100.
That's been about
No,
48
but what I'm
months.
saying, the fees are adjusted every year, and you accept them at 100%, and you adjust the assessment to see how much everyone will pay. So that 100% will always be there. It's the assessment that you can go in and change at any time.
Yeah, which is what we're discussing right now. Assessment, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, which the assessment I'd like to have at 95%, 40%.
Coach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In listening to Mr. Portia is talking about, I think we should stay the way it is and deal with the situation as things go, as we go along. Chair. So I prefer staying the way it is.
All right. Mr. Mason?
I agree with Mr. Lawler for the East Bank fees. I definitely think, I mean, he and I sat on transportation together for 3 years, and we watched those fees, and looking at how much, you figured it out at one point, Aaron, I think we were missing like 3 million or something because we weren't charging everything that we could. And I know it's a lot of money, and you know, like Eric was saying, it's a big jump, and I understand that. But one of the things that I was thinking too is for the West Bank, I would even consider maybe lower them for a little while, because that is something that we can come back and look at next year. And the reason I say lower them is try to encourage more development on the West Bank, because, I mean, these traffic fees are great, but I would rather more property taxes and sales taxes, to be honest. And I'd rather not, you know, have it in an area that's already very heavily congested. The West Bank has the space, and it's got the capabilities to handle it. Like Joel said, it's got the infrastructure, it's got everything ready to go. So I would recommend almost lowering the fees to maybe 25%, just to try to encourage development on the West Bank. I mean, that's what we've been trying to do all years, like all 3.5, 4 years we've been here, is we want to encourage the redevelopment and the revitalization of the West Bank. So I think we should be doing everything we possibly can to make that happen. So that's just my recommendation, and I'm open to any other discussion. Thanks.
Mr. Ogeron?
Thank you. Mr. Quintmore left. Does anybody know where Mr. Quintmore stands on this issue? I didn't realize he had left us. Has Mr. Quintmore given you any indications as to how he would want this to be done?
No, sir.
Nothing at all? Didn't answer your questions either, just like it doesn't answer Mr. Lawler's. When it comes to putting additional burdens on our citizens, it's a difficult premise. And I understand that folks that work in government, they see the expenses going up, and they feel the need that we need to, you know, hit the citizens a little bit harder so that they can get all the nice things. But there's something that government fails to do that private sector does, and that is to look at trimming the fat. And I know we've got our CFO here, and I know Patrick is a genius when it comes to playing with numbers. And, you know, I think it would be important for us at some point to sit down and to say, you know, where are we throwing money away? You know, I mean, citizens constantly are complaining about all the engineering studies and, you know, the engineers doing the same study on the same project 4, 5, 6 times, and we're paying millions of dollars that could have been used for boots on the ground. And in this scenario here, I'm with Mr. Lambert. I can't foresee increasing anything against our citizens. We're getting taxed too much. And, you know, I wish the president would have been here so he could have given us some insight as to, you know, where he stood with this. I mean, you're from the administration, so obviously, you know, he's the top of the food chain there. So maybe we'll be able to corner him in an email and get a response. I know Mr. Diaz won't be there to answer it for him, so we'll just get somebody else to answer it on his behalf. Thanks.
Mr. Lawler?
Look, fortunately, this is only an introduction, so it's going to come back next time, and we'll be able to discuss it more. But I'm glad we're discussing this because there are, you know, look, it is increasing cost. We listen to the citizens, though, and they want improved roads. A lot of them that have been here forever get upset when they see people moving in. So it's just a difficult balance to make, but we've got a couple weeks where we can all try and figure out something, a path forward on this. And I really would like to, you know, I think there were some good points about the west side, possibly lowering it. I don't know if that's the impediment, though, to developing on the west side right now. I don't know if 10% of, you know, if $300, whatever it is the impediment to building over there. So that's something we can look into and maybe talk to people that have considered building over there and find out, is that the issue? And if it's not the issue, you know, let's just learn a little bit more about it. That's all I'm thinking.
Mr. Lambert?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would also, you know, competing with other parishes here, we are the highest in all of the fees, correct?
We have
what
some
I would
fees,
like,
yes.
I would like a breakdown of say a 1,600 square foot home or 2,500 foot. And, you know, look, I'm hearing some checks are being cut from, you know, anywhere from $10,000 to $12,000 by the time all the fees are paid. All I'm saying here is I think, you know, the interest rate's up. I think we need to kind of just choke back a little bit here and help the people. And I'm pretty sure, I'll go on record right now, I think we are the highest parish with the fees. So I think if we're at the top, we might want to, you know, just take a look at this and, you know, if you find any numbers, Eric,
Okay.
I appreciate you, but, I don't think we're lacking from what we're charging right now, and, I think, you know, to get a lot of these projects up and going, I believe we need to stay where we are, and that's the way I feel.
Mr. Robert?
After listening to everybody, including on the West Bank, I feel like I'd be okay with discounting the West Bank. I don't think that's an issue right now, as long as we had some type of, and we do, but as long as we follow the system and keep track of it in the future, whether it be quarterly, annually, or what, to see how we are as far as infrastructure per people. I mean, how much more we can sustain and whatnot. Most importantly, I think the fee on the East Bank is going to make the difference, because, I mean, that's where the money's coming through. And as I said before, I understand where everybody else is coming from with the economy and everything. And we have a couple weeks to decide this, but I'd like to see some type of increase on the east side, even if we split what I just said in half and say 2.5%, just something to move in the direction that we intended to and want to. But we have some time to think about it. 5%, 2.5%, something percent. But West Bank, I agree. I mean, I feel like that won't really make any big difference at all.
No.
Other than possibly bringing some more people in, as Michael was saying. And we can use all the people we can get over there as far as development and infrastructure for commercial and industrial. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Poche. I'm gonna just make one quick comment. So I agree with Mr. Lambert, and I've kind of, you know, mentioned it, you know, a few times over the years. So with the field mitigation ordinance, you know, 65% of the parish, the East Bank, you know, is in a flood zone. So 65% of the people who are gonna, you know, build a house, they have to do some type of mitigation
Right.
on our field ordinance, and I feel confident in ballparking that as a $3,000 to $4,000 service for your average home. You know, if you got if you need a 2-foot dirt pad, you know, to get you to that BFE, right? You want to pay the engineer and whatnot, and then so you throw our impact fees and on the individual homeowners as well. You know, you're $7-8 grand before anything happens, and on top of our permitting fees and all the other things that have to act. So I think we're flirting with a fine line of on the monetary side of making it inconvenient and a little more difficult, especially for the younger homeowners who still you know, have that family land or live in, you know, buildings. So that's my stance on it, and that's why I just want you to kind of figure everything into that pot, what they have to pay before we even give them a permit to start building the houses.
Yeah.
You know, it's up there. I mean, you know, in some cases, you know, like Mr. Lambert said, you're in that $10,000 range, and you haven't done anything yet.
That's right.
So, no, but but at the same time, I am happy to support introducing the ordinance, because we still got to introduce it, right? And then we have 2 weeks before we vote on it, so we have plenty of time to make our recommendations and that thing. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to move forward with the ordinance or to not move forward.
Motion.
A motion for, okay. We have a motion from Mr. Lawler to proceed with the introduction of ordinance for the transportation impact fee, and I got a second from Mr. Robert. Is there any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Thank you, Mr. Poche. 9B, ARPA funds status. I believe Mr. Goldsmith is going to be handling this for us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've been talking about this for a long time. This is a long process with this grant. You have a very large spreadsheet in front of you with a lot of data, but I want to tell you how we got to this spreadsheet and where we're at. Yeah, you better get your glasses out so you can read it all. So this all started in March of 21. The American Rescue Plan Act was passed, and the parish was allocated $24 million. We got our first disbursement in April of 2021. June of 22, we got our second disbursement, so we received all the money. We decided to put it in the dedicated special projects fund, and we talked about this in finance just so we could account for it, make sure we knew where all the money was before we decided where to spend it. And the reason why it took a long time for us to kind of get a handle on this is the final guidance did not become effective until April of 22, nearly a year after the program started. And there was so much confusion about what the money could be spent on. Most parishes, and we had a lot of conversations with our counterparts, y'all will remember, about we would rather be cautious and make sure we know what the money can be spent on instead of making a mistake and have to pay it back. So unfortunately, it took us a while to get there. And just so you know, too, the money has to be obligated by December 31st of 2024. And, you know, I guess in my old life, I was fortunate enough to be involved in some of the discussions with the Treasury when they started this obligation. And what it came down to is they want to see that you've got a contract, you've budgeted it, something to show that you've actually obligated the money. So we're looking at a deadline of December 31st of 2024 to obligate. To spend the money, you have to spend it by December 31st of 2026. So they put a long lead time, and I think part of that was because of all the confusion that came out in the beginning, and I think they kind of anticipated that. There's been a lot of talk about clawbacks. The federal government has said, look, you know, if you haven't spent this money or haven't obligated it, really was obligated. If you haven't obligated it by a certain point, we might claw it back because they were looking for money for other programs. Congress tried it a couple times. It didn't go anywhere. I haven't heard anything since. So right now, I think we're still looking at that December 31st, 2024 deadline. And when we go through some of the details, I think you'll see that we should be okay with that. Plus, I'm going to have a couple asks at the end of this. So anyway,
I just have one quick.
Yeah, sure.
So obligation.
Yes.
What defines obligation? Because as a body, we approved these projects last year. I can't remember if it was via a resolution or.
It was a resolution in August of last year.
Right.
And so obligation for sure, if you have a contract. If you have started to spend money, if you have a contract out there, you're going to be good.
Okay.
A lot of places have talked about, well, I've got it budgeted and we're working on it, you know, because you've got to do design work and things like that. As long as you've got that in place. So that's why our goal, and you hear us talk about this, is going to be we need to get these things moving, and a lot of them are. We may not have spent a lot of money yet, but we've got the designs are getting ready to go. A lot of this you're going to see is in the third quarter of this year. And we'll talk about that too. Recreation, I know, gets regular updates on these, and they hear that a lot about that with, by third quarter of this year, I think we're going to be we should be sitting really well. And, you know, we can come back and give those updates. But
yeah, I wasn't trying to throw you off. I just wanted to understand what obligation, what.
No, and look, this was a national problem with what does this mean and what are you going to hold us to? And I think it's come down to that contract term. Just something else that happened too during all of that time when they were trying to figure out their guidance, because look, they had guidance, they had interim guidance, then they had interim final guidance, then they had final, and then they had effective dates. One of the things that happened is they allowed you to do a revenue loss projection or take a standard 10 million. And that can be used for anything that you normally spend money on in government. So since transportation was not allowed in this program, talking with the council members, we did a lot of work to get y'all involved. We said, transportation is a need. So that 10 million went towards transportation projects, which you'll see on the list, and that's part of what was approved. Basically, you approved a list from the Transportation Committee and a list from the Recreation Committee of the suggestions for how to spend the 24 million. So since then, we've obviously done a lot of work on this. I know Recreation meets every Wednesday to go through these with a fine-tooth comb. We talk with our grants department, because that's another thing. You got to make sure you spend these right, or the auditors are going to come back and say that's a disallowable cost and they're going to want their money back. So thanks to the Recreation Committee, Councilmember Lawler, for the work they've done trying to, keep that on task. And again, you'll see a lot of this is starting soon, or has started. But before we get into the details, one thing I'm going to ask by the end of this is for us to have the ability to do two things. Some of these projects are going to take a little bit longer. When you're talking about a kayak launch, are we going to be able to get it done where we have to clear property? I would like to have the ability to what we call a means of finance swap, because the administration is committed to these projects. Y'all approve these. We want to stick with these. But if we can do what I call a means of finance swap, is we may have a project that also qualifies, and we're spending general fund, just say, or recreation funds. We'll move that up into the list for our reporting to the feds and spend the ARPA funds on that, and then spend that general fund on this project. Same projects get done. It's just a timing, and the state, we do it all the time. It's just called a means of finance swap. Everything stays the same. It's just we're changing what money we're spending at what time. Yeah, obligated quicker, because that's the name of this game. The other one is obviously we're going to have cost, one more thing, and we're going to have cost overruns. I mean, that's just a fact of life today. We know we're having so many issues with supply chain, estimates coming back higher. We're probably going to need some flexibility, because obviously if one project comes in $1 million over, that means we can't do another project. So there's a lot of the smaller ones that we may have to say, look, we had to make a priority decision, not saying we're never going to do those, but it's something we're doing every day now in the parish, whether it's transportation, whether it's drainage, because a lot of these estimates are coming in, some of them 120%, over what we budgeted. So those are a couple last, but I think, Councilman Lawler, you might have had a
Mr. Lawler
question.
had a question for you.
Yes, sir. You've answered a lot of the questions I already had. Fantastic. That was great. As far as the obligation swap, though, is that something that would come to the council for approval? How would that work?
Well, I guess what I'm asking for the ability to do is that we can just internally decide, instead of spending the rescue money, we're going to spend the general fund. And look, we can get you a list. Before we do it, we'd be happy to come bring it to you. Nothing changes in terms of which projects get done. Sometimes they call it the color of money. I'm spending green over here and red over here. I'm just going to swap the two so I can spend this money faster.
I think it's important, though, that, we are, as the council, authorize money, we're in charge of budgeting, that it come to us at least for approval and get notice. I don't see where it would ever be a problem.
No,
but
absolutely. We want to be 100% transparent, and you're right. Hopefully, it doesn't require a budget amendment. We can definitely bring it. We can talk about it in finance if we get to that point. I'm not saying we will, but, the obligated word, is what everybody's scared of. And
yes.
If we've already got projects that qualify, because when they did the final rule, one of the best things that happened is it opened up the recreation. And that's why we have, 11, 12 million of recreation projects. So another thing is when we did this list, this was a new list of projects. We already had a lot of projects going on. So this bumped up against a lot of ones that were existing, and it takes a while to plan the existing ones. So this would just be an opportunity, again, to, when we report to the feds quarterly, to be able to say, look, some of this has already been obligated, spent. I still think we're going to be okay if we don't. It's just kind of an extra tool we got in our tool chest to make sure we obligate all the money.
Would it take a resolution from us or something to get the obligation swap, to get a confirmation from the administration that it will come to us?
I would think if we just bring you every one that we've got, and
But how will we be assured of that, Patrick?
I guarantee you.
Okay,
That's pretty good.
But you're not the president, and he's not here, so it makes it a little harder.
He answers that question.
I know. No, and I trust you, Patrick. Some of us aren't going to be here
Well,
in 6 months.
So
and
what
we
I
wanna
will
make
say
sure.
is the administration has told us, this is the list of projects.
Yes.
We do not deviate. You have a resolution. So for us to do something different, we need to come to you. And I have been told that from the administration. So before we do that, we will come. So if one of these projects comes in 100% over, like I wouldn't doubt it does, we're probably going to come and say, and I hope nobody quotes me, we may not be able to do the BMX track. We may not be able to do the kayak launch today, because those were some of the ones that were not as far along in planning, and we don't want to stop the ones that are. It's either going to be that, or we're going to be coming to you asking to maybe use other funds to help supplement with these. And look, unfortunately, that's just what we have to do with just about everything nowadays.
You can keep going, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, so just to walk through the sheet real quick, and I know this is a lot, and I have to put on my glasses too. The main thing is.
Who chose this font?
I'm not going to, I won't throw anybody under the bus. If you look all the way on the left, those are the list of projects that the resolution included. The next column is a description. The next column is a list of current actions, because we wanted to try to make sure y'all knew exactly what was happening. There's a lot of things that have happened in the past. We tried to give the location of where things are happening, the amount of rescue funds that we obligated, the estimated cost of construction, and you'll know some of these, it's more than what we allocated, because, for example, the Santa Ma Health and Wellness Center, we've got other funds too. So this is just one piece of funding that we're using in addition to FEMA funds, in addition to others that we're going to use. Then you're going to start seeing, after the expenditures to date, the first major milestone, because we tried to give the design status, the construction date, the construction completion. And so if you go down that design, the goal was to have everything done by the third quarter of 2023. The kayak launch, it says fourth quarter of 2024, that's a typo, it's the 2023. So most things are going to have that date. And so that was what we were trying to aim for. You'll also notice that, and this got a little complicated for us, if you look at the walking paths, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, some of these are being incorporated into larger projects. So when you see that the design and development associated with Butch Gore will include this, we tried to do economies of scale when we could and combine things. So why do one path by itself when you can incorporate it in a bigger project and try to save a little bit of money? But I think the main point of all of this, and again, I don't want to go over every project because Recreation does that in great detail every meeting, but we're moving along well. And if you flip to the back page, just to talk about the transportation projects real quick, and I know I don't have to explain to the council the issues we're having with utilities. And 3 of these are, you talk about locked and loaded and ready to go, but we're waiting on the DEMCO resolution, and I know we're getting closer. So Jeff Burris couldn't be here today, but if you look at the transportation, those are all moving, and we feel really good about those. We just got to get utility issues taken care of, and then, get moving on some of the design. So if you ask me if I feel comfortable at this point, the answer is going to be yes. We'll make sure we come back and look. I know the third quarter, again, is going to be a big time for us, and there's been a big commitment. And look, Randy Mullis, Rachel with our project management group, Michael King have done a heck of a job keeping on top of these and trying to move these along. And realize that's just the rescue projects. These are all the recreation projects. So they've got all of their projects to keep up with, as well as the rescue ones. So it's a lot. There's a lot of balls in the air, but I think we're managing this project well, and I feel confident we're going to be able to meet all the federal guidelines and we'll get it obligated.
Yeah, Mr. Lawler?
Jacob, since you're still here, if you used Felix Tilting 2 fonts like this book could be like 20 pages, man. You could save a ton of money on this. This is like the smallest fonts ever.
All right, are there any other questions for Mr. Goldsmith? No? All right, thank you, Patrick.
All right, thank y'all.
Good job, Pat.
All right, item 10, introduction of ordinance. Reminder, I just need a motion to introduce. 10A, introduction of ordinance to declare a surplus and authorize the sale and/or transfer of miscellaneous movable equipment. We have a motion by Mr. Lawler. Item number 11, public hearing ordinances.
Chairman Malasso,
Yes.
you skipped the discussion of.
Oh, I got you. Well, you're not wrong. I didn't want to do that. I'm sorry, I skipped 9C, which is a discussion of Act 393, Senate Bill number 201, relative to open meetings to authorize certain public bodies to conduct meetings via electronic means.
I'll take the lead.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'll let you take the lead.
Yeah, just so the public knows, since that we all know what's going on up here, state legislature recently passed, they amended some of the laws, basically to state that we have to make our meetings ADA accessible, make them available to the public electronically, but also make our meetings available to the council members electronically if you want to participate by a meeting via Zoom or some other thing. And you have to meet certain requirements for that. It's supposed to be enacted by August 1st, but we are working on it right now. We're working with our legal counsel to come up with a plan to do this, and we're going to model what we have over what we did during the COVID years, which is basically it. The reason we wanted this on here is so that the public knows and everybody watching knows that we are actively working towards meeting this August 1st deadline, and we're doing everything we can to do it.
If I could just add, the bill became effective August 1st, and so I just wanted to add that Brandon wanted me to let you know that, there'll probably be a little bit of programming changes, but the good news is it's a company that's on state contract that we've been using for the systems. The bigger need will be in Donaldsonville to make sure we meet it, but with it on state contract, that makes it a lot easier to move things forward. I think Brandon's going to try to get us a quote of what it'll take to be in, we comply with everything that they envision that's allowed in the statute. And so I'm sure you'll be hearing from us about that, just so you can, we get the full picture. Even the fiscal note of the bill contemplated this, that there was going to be some additional cost, and we'll make sure we inform y'all of the details.
All right. Oh, you good?
Oh, yeah, just
okay.
keep it moving so they know.
All right, back to 11A, reading of an ordinance to accept the donation and transfer of the title to an emergency response boat from the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office to the Parish of Ascension Fire District Number 1. Mr. Dupatti.
Now you skipped 10A, introduction of ordinance.
No, we did that one.
We did that.
We did one.
skipped and went back.
Did we have a motion to introduce?
Yeah, we had a motion from Aaron
Okay.
on that one. I only skipped one.
You only use the DeLorean once.
Yeah.
Purpose: to accept donation and transfer of title pursuant to an act of donation of certain movable property owned by the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office to the Parish of Ascension Fire Protection District Number 1, whereas the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office owns a 2006 Triton boat VIN TJZ2S132H506 and a 2006 Marine Master Trailer VIN 5JUBA24236TO19780. This equipment is no longer needed by Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office, whereas the Parish of Ascension Fire District Number 1 will maintain and provide insurance for said equipment. Be it ordained, the Ascension Parish Council as the governing authority in and for the Parish of Ascension with permission, consent, and request of the Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office does hereby authorize an acceptance, conveyance, and transfer to all rights, title, and interest in and to 2006 Triton boat VIN TJZ2S132H506 and 2006 Marine Master Trailer VIN 5JUBA24236TO19780, as is and without warranty of any kind, as more fully contained in an act of donation attached here to and made part hereof as Exhibit A. Be it further ordained that Clint Quaintmont, Parish President, is hereby authorized to execute any and all documents necessary to complete this transfer on behalf of the Parish Council. Ordinance having been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
A motion to open public hearing by Mr. Robert, second by Mr. Lawler. Motion to close public hearing by Mr. Mason.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lawler. Motion to move the ordinance by Mr. Mason.
Second.
A second by Mr. Lawler. Any objection? Hearing none, so moved. Executive session, we will need roll call to enter executive session. If everyone could please vote.
A motion to enter executive session.
Motion by Mr. Lawler, second by Mr. Mason. If everyone would please vote.
We can't go.
Let's see, we have, I'm doing a four.
We can do it here.
Yeah, we're 8 yeas, 1 nay. We need a supermajority, so we will enter executive session.
Okay.
Yes. Hey, John, am I live? Yes, you are, sir. Okay. All right, we have a motion to reconvene by Mr. Wagasback, a second by Mr. Mason. We reconvene. Chair will entertain a motion. Motion?
You gotta describe it a little better.
Well, motion to, do you want to just say yes or just motion to remove the initial law firm and hire the new law firm?
There you go.
And also apply it to future.
And, you wanted to
And apply to future
apply
labor
all
and
future
employment.
Legal employment as well.
The non-lawyer got it.
I'll second that move.
Wait, we have some type of motion from Mr. Turner.
Send them good luck.
I move that we approve Leela Day as legal counsel for the Allen Rowe matter, and we approve using his services on any further personnel or labor and employment issues that he may be assigned.
Will you withdraw your motion, Mr. Turner, and
No.
second, Mr. Lawless? No? Okay. I have a motion from Mr. Lawler. I need a second. A second from Mr. Mason. Any objection? Hearing none. Motion to adjourn. We are adjourned.
Council,
Any objection?
Mr. Ledea is here if y'all want to meet him.
All right.
Wants to meet us.